This is CNN reporter Chris Morrow in San Francisco at the headquarters of Airbnb with Chip Conley. What do you do here?
I am the head of global hospitality and strategy, which really means that I'm the person who helps to spread hospitality around the world with our hosts, more than 1 million hosts throughout the world.
It looks like your office. I took a little tour of the office, and each room is a different Airbnb location. Like this is
in Portici, Italy. We tried to make sure that our employees here at the headquarters are completely cognizant of the fact that we wouldn't be anywhere without our hosts and without their homes. And that's why we have really made all of our meeting spaces a replication of some listing in the world.
Let's talk about hospitality. Do you think that's the key to an Airbnb host?
Yeah, our hosts come in all shapes, sizes, ages.
I'm one of them. I'm a super host.
Yes, thank you. I mean, being a super host, there's like only 7% of our hosts globally are super hosts. So the fact you've done it for 4 quarters in a row is pretty impressive.
Well, a super host means?
Superhost basically means that you have met the standards that are the highest standards in the company in terms of guest satisfaction and just, in fact, reliability. You're just incredibly reliable and you do things really well. And that really speaks to the idea of hospitality. Hospitality is, from my perspective, a generosity of spirit from the heart, but it really comes down to measuring it based upon the experience that a guest has. Have we helped our guests feel like they could belong anywhere? And our best hosts are both good at the science of hospitality, making sure that they are responsive in terms of a reservation coming in, making sure that everything's clean and checked in. But at the end of the day, the thing that really I think sets Airbnb apart from the rest of the hospitality industry is that personal experience, that sort of home away from home experience that is heart to heart between usually 2 people or maybe sometimes 3 if you're staying in someone's home. Long story short is that level of personal connection that is created where a stranger turns into a friend is the magic of Airbnb.
I think that you said there's over 2 million listings right now, and
I think we have just under 2 million, but we're getting close. We'll be at 2 million soon enough. Yes, and we've got over a million hosts. So most hosts are actually doing this in their own home. You do it in your home, is that right?
My own home, it's shared.
Yeah.
So I have a 3-bedroom. One of the rooms is an Airbnb room, and I guess it's my 2nd year to do this.
Yeah, well, that happens all the time. People, actually, one of the group's demographics that people just can't imagine it because they think of Airbnb just a millennial thing are empty nesters. People who are my age, I'm 55 this month, and they've got a couple kids, 3 kids, and they've all moved on, and now they've got extra bedrooms. And so what we see over and over again is people saying, wow, I've got extra space here, or I may have a cottage in the backyard, or I may have a cottage up at the lake, and it's always empty. And so why not actually give it an opportunity to have someone stay there, make some money in the process, and probably make a friend as well.
What about the Airbnb Open? This is the 2nd year to do the Airbnb Open?
That's right. So the Airbnb Open is an event this year in Paris. Its first year was in San Francisco. We chose Paris because it's our largest city in terms of the number of homes we have there. It's one of the most popular cities in the world, obviously. And Europe's a really big place for Airbnb. About half of our business is there. We do this every year now to give our host community the opportunity to connect with each other and to hear from Airbnb in terms of where we're going as a company. But more than anything, it really is this inspirational event where people get to share their stories with each other. We'll have about 6,000 hosts we already have 101 countries. We just wanted to get to 100 countries. We're actually we're at 101 now, and we'll probably maybe get to 105 or 110 countries, which is amazing. There's actually never been an event outside the U.S. that's a company-sponsored event that has had this many countries represented at the event. So that's a big deal in our 2nd year. And that just, again, is another indication that we are a global company.
Talk about countries. You have a listing in Cuba now.
We have 2,500 listings in Cuba.
Wow.
Wow, yeah. So what was interesting about that is that the Cuban people for many, many years have created casa particulares, which are in essence people opening up their home to to travelers staying there. So there was a culture and a history of it. But U.S. residents were not allowed to actually go there. And so as soon as the politics changed and the White House said, listen, with certain parameters, we're going to let Americans now go, U.S. citizens go, residents to go actually to Cuba, immediately Cubans actually started signing up on our platform, and we went from, within about 3 weeks we had 1,000 listings, and now just like 2 or 3 months later we have 2,500. So that shows. I think this is a movement. I mean, it really is. We've tapped into something that's quite universal. The idea that a traveler, when they're going around the world, wants to feel like they can belong anywhere, and the instinct that humans have as a host, that you like to actually take care of people when they're on the road, and not everybody likes to do that. And that's why the hotel industry is not too worried. And I'm a hotelier for 30 years now. I'm not too worried because this isn't for everybody, but for those who love it, and we now have almost 60 million customers. They love it. They are very loyal.
Well, going back to Cuba, is there an issue with internet connections over there, or is that really not too much of a stumbling block?
Well, we are an internet platform. Airbnb is. So yes, internet connections are important, and that is one of the issues, and that's why sometimes we actually have some ambassadors who are the folks who have the internet connection, and some of the hosts who don't have an internet connection can actually use those ambassadors as a way to actually connect with the outside world.
Recently, I watched your TED talk, and you're talking about the joy of life. So I was hoping that you could just take a few minutes, maybe 3, and just talk about the joy of life.
The joy of life. Wow, that's a question I don't get asked much anymore, but I love it. So I started at age 26. I started a boutique hotel company. Boutique hotels are generally smaller than chain hotels, and by buying a motel in the Tenderloin here in San Francisco. And I decided to call the company Joie de Vivre, which in French means joy of life. And the reason I decided that is because there are very few companies in the world whose mission statement is also the name of the company. And for me, I wanted to remind all of our employees, and we grew to 3,500 employees over the 24 years that I was running and CEO of the company. And so I wanted to remind us on a daily basis that we're here to provide joy. And that's really, I think, what the hospitality business does. That's what hotels do very well, and I take my hat off to my fellow hoteliers. But what I love about Airbnb is we're democratizing hospitality. We are, in essence, saying you don't have to go get a Swiss hotel degree to be an innkeeper. You can actually do that because you have an extra bedroom down the hallway. And what I think people appreciate is the authenticity of the Airbnb home sharing experience.
That's how I feel at first when I was doing it, I was a little scared. Some strangers coming into my house, and they're coming in and they're going to be sharing everything with me. But as soon as I understood how comfortable it was and how friendly, I guess the joy of life, and everyone's on their best behavior, of course, when you meet someone, right? That it was just second nature, and it was a way to help pay my mortgage.
Yeah, and just in that statement, you've said a few very important things. Number one is for a large percentage, it's actually the majority of our hosts, Airbnb and the income they earn is part of the way they pay their mortgage or their rent. So it's actually fundamental income. And middle class income in the United States has been pretty much flat, stuck for about 15 years or 10 or 15 years. This is almost like getting a raise. And the former head of economic analysis for the White House said that it was like a 14% raise by being an Airbnb host. So it's a way to do that. But also there's the connection you feel with other people. Some people say, I don't have the money to go and travel around the world and see people from Australia and Germany and I don't know, Singapore, but they actually come to my home and I get to meet them here. And so it actually allows you to have adventure without having to necessarily go off and do the traveling yourself. But I think it's a new form of hospitality, but it's a really old form of hospitality. Before Holiday Inn existed, which was the first hotel chain, the fact is people were staying in other people's homes around the world. And I think that's why it's so familiar for people.
And when is the Airbnb open?
The Airbnb opens November 12th through the 14th in Paris. And it's the largest event we've ever tried to accomplish at Airbnb. And but it's the second year, and I think the first, we're going to be doing this for a long time.
Can anybody go that is a host for Airbnb?
Anybody can go who's a host. And so if you're a host, you're welcome to go, and we still have a few spaces open. And in the future, we could see it expanding to our guest community as well. But in this year, it's still just hosts.
Chip, thanks for your time.
I really appreciate joining you, and thank you so much for being a super host.
Yeah, and I'll see you in Paris.
Yes.
All right. This is Chris Morrow, CNN Our Reporter.